Hockeytown, it's a place where dreams are found. We fought so many battles here, now we're the ones that they will fear. The cup resides within our town, we won't stop no letting down. The cup is ours, we're all to drink. It's our time, let's rock this ring.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Hockeytown Rundown. You are here with us, your beautiful hosts, once again, Zach, Carlo, and Matt. What is up, boys? Happy
What's up,
Sunday.
brother?
What's up, brother?
What's up, brother?
Oh my goodness.
I love that.
Everyone's on that train. It is Sunday morning, 11:15 a.m. as we record. Unfortunately, things did not go as we would have hoped, boys and girls. But how's everyone's weekend so far? Carlo, building cabinets over there, chopping down trees.
Yeah, no, just had to be done. It wasn't really a tree. It was more of a bush that had like so many roots and branches that were like intertwined, and then like a huge stump. It was a nightmare, but we got her done. And then I rubbed 5 racks of ribs bright and early this morning. Having a big barbecue later, so pretty pumped about that. And I can still smell the rub, and it's gonna be good. I've washed my hands 17 times. It's gonna be great. It's still there.
Matt, how's your weekend going?
My weekend was great. You know, just like Carlo, I was all day building bookshelves and fixing desks. So yeah, it was a pretty nice weekend. My girlfriend and I got some new furniture that we put together, and we almost killed each other over it because I don't know if you know this, but if you buy a piece of furniture and it says some assembly required, the only thing you don't have to do is chop down the wood and make the metal yourself. You have to assemble the entire damn thing. God, it was awful, but now we have a bar cart, so that's really nice. We have a place to store our liquor and our beer, and I gotta be honest, I'm looking at it right now. It's pretty beautiful. It looks really good. I'm proud of myself for following directions and screwing the right screws into the right holes. So that's what I've been up to.
Love it.
Yeah, that's great to hear, Matt. At least you don't have a drink in your hand. Let's wait until noon at least, and then we'll give you full permission to start cracking open some drinks for the boys on the panel.
Sure,
right?
Sounds good to me.
All right, Matt. Well, thanks for that, and welcome back. We haven't had you on in a while, so it's happy to have you back, buddy.
It's good to be back.
Yeah. Here at the Rundown, we appreciate y'all for stopping by once again. If you are returning, if you are new, why don't you go ahead and do us a favor and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and then hit the thumbs up button. You guys did a really good job at getting us to 20 likes last episode. Let's do it again, everyone. We definitely appreciate that because that helps us out more than you probably know. Also, if you are listening to us or watching us on Spotify, yes, you can do both. Go ahead and give us a follow on there and then rate us the 5 stars. That really does help us out as well. And so, boys, what do we got today? We got some game notes that we have to go over based on what happened last week, right after our last recording, the 2 games against the Montreal Canadiens, where the Red Wings did win both of them in overtime, one going into a shootout. We have some Red Wings news, our main topics, and then we will finish off with around the league news and our Red Wings honorary mention of the week. So stick around to hear all of that. And so with that,
it's a good one. Stick around. It's a good one.
Stick around. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. And so the Red Wings play against the Montreal Canadiens back-to-back for the last 2 games of the season. And with that, the Red Wings did win in overtime 5-4, thanks to an amazing, beautiful lad, as I like to call Razor, much like everyone else in Red Wings fandom. And so with this, just to briefly cover everything, if it wasn't for Lucas Raymond, we would have been knocked out of the playoff race as a whole. Lucas Raymond did end up being the first star of the game, scoring the last 2 goals of the game, the one with less than 2 minutes, thanks to David Brown and Shane Gosper giving it to him and him just putting it in. I can't remember if it was over or just underneath his glove, but what a beautiful shot. What a beautiful attempt to then forcing us to go into overtime where Lucas Raymond, Dylan Larkin, and Shane Gosper once again ending it in overtime. And so, boys, if you guys want to take a crack at a rundown on this game, go ahead. But I don't want to spend too much time on this because I'm still very sad about the way that the season ended, thanks to John Tortorella. But probably one of those games that probably shouldn't have gone this far. Red Wings definitely looked like the better team in both games personally. But in this one, yeah. Carlo, real quick, do you want to touch on this game? Then Matt, you can touch on it next.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, other than the fact that Raymond has absolutely found his clutch gene, um, I mean, there's just a lot of hope. I feel like after the season ended, and especially that game, there's a lot of hope. Even the overtime goal, man, with like Larkin and Raymond were at the end of their shifts. Like Larkin was already on the ice for I think close to a minute. Same with Razor, and the way he just kind of buckled up and went all the way down the ice and just scored that gorgeous goal. I mean, he's activated that gene, and I'm really looking forward to that carrying over into next season. But I'm really looking forward to him having another offseason like he had last offseason because he put on size, he got some strength. And again, like he just turned 22 years old. So there's going to be a ton of things to look forward to with Lucas Raymond. But as for the game, yeah, I mean, that's really the best thing to pull out of it is that clutch gene. Obviously, Shane Air Ghost, I should call him, with that insane grab, bringing it to Perron finding room, drawing some players to him, and then Raymond being all alone to wait for that goalie to flinch and tucked it. That was incredible. That was just clutch genes from all those guys. And then, of course, I don't want to go too far ahead, but Perron's clutch gene stuck around for the following game as well. But other than that, I mean, I didn't really care for the way the team started. Lyon didn't look great. But I think there was a lot of positives that came out of that game when it comes to that superstar player that we've been searching for. I think we may have found him. So that's kind of my recap on it. Matt, what do you got, buddy?
Yeah, all good stuff from you. I think that performance from Raymond probably earned him another $500,000 on his next contract, which we'll definitely get into later. We're for sure going to be covering that whole saga. Yeah, I mean that he's about as clutch of a player as we've ever had in Hockeytown. It's literally, I mean, you can just look at the end of season score sheet. He was the highest scoring forward on the roster. That's always been Dylan Larkin. It's been him pretty much the whole time he's been here. Now we finally have Raymond, who's actually leading the team in scoring, and that's not just going to be a flash in the pan. I imagine that's going to be the case for probably a good chunk of the rest of his career, to be honest. Probably going to be battling between him and Larkin. Yeah, that's a guy that you can look at in Lucas Raymond, and you can confidently say that he doesn't really care about what's on the stat sheet. He doesn't really care about what his salary is. He just cares about the logo on his chest. That performance right there really tells you everything you need to know, because, I mean, if he didn't show up in that game and they lose in overtime, they may have been eliminated earlier than game 82. You never really know how it shakes out. So, yeah, definitely a great performance by him. And I think one guy, maybe a little bit of an unsung hero that we aren't really covering, is JT Compher and his 2 goals. I mean, every time that Montreal scored, he made sure he could score right after to cut the deficit. You know, I've really been impressed with JT Compher. Obviously, is he a 2C? Ideally on a cup team? No, but that's kind of just what we need on this team right now till we can find someone better. But yeah, I really like his game. I think he's been honestly super underrated, a pretty important part of this team. So good performance by him too. And yeah, of course, it didn't shake out the way we wanted it to, but you can't sit here and say after they've been eliminated that it was from a lack of trying. They really showed heart the whole way through.
No, they really did, and I'll agree with you, Matt. And yeah, it was very clutch for JT Compher to come in and close out some goals, answering back, because the Red Wings were down 3-1 at one point, actually 4-1 at one point. First goal was by JT Compher, second one by JT Compher again. Then you got a snipe by Alex DeBrincat, and then that's when Lucas Raymond comes in and activates his clutch gene, much like Carlo iterated to. But overall in this game, Alex Lyon didn't have a great outing. He had a .810 save percentage. There's no excuses for that, right? There were definitely some goals that he should have saved, but then again, the defense just broke down in key moments. I mean, that's the song and dance that we've been seeing all season long, and it's not just the defense, it's also the offensive side. When they need to play defense, no one can get the puck out of the zone. But talking about some of the stats, the Red Wings did outshoot them 35-21, losing in the faceoff percentage 48-52. Hits 28-32 Montreal. Do you guys know how many block shots Montreal had that game?
Didn't they have like 16 after the first period or second period?
Triple the amount that we had. To our 11, they had 33 the whole entire game. The Red Wings were shooting a lot, but
Yeah.
obviously not enough to where they could outscore their opponent, forcing it into overtime, right? And so good effort all around, but there was definitely some players that game that did not show up. Patrick Kane almost solely lost the game for us with a couple bad calls. He took a high sticking and then did a poke check trip to an opposing player as well with like the final, what was it, like 3 minutes left in the game. And so, yeah, a lot of players just a decent amount of players, I shouldn't say a lot, a decent amount of players just didn't show up this game. And Patrick Kane in his locker room clean out presser, he even mentioned how he wasn't impressed with the way that he played as of late. But enough about that game. Let's move on to the next game. We're just going to touch on these really quickly, boys and girls. Red Wings win their last game playing in Montreal against Montreal, winning 5-4 in a shootout. Patrick Kane was the only one to score in that shootout, but same issue here. I mean, you got Montreal getting up on the board first, then you got Moritz Seider, Brandon Gallagher breaks the tying lead, then Cole Caulfield, then you got Joe Veleno out of nowhere. Glad to see that he's able to get on the score sheet. Daniel Sprong, someone who hasn't been on the score sheet lately either. Glad to see that he was finally getting in there, and he just squeaked one in there. And then David Perron, Daddy P, the man of the 3 seconds left in the third period, 3.3 seconds left off the faceoff, basically claps one in, goes 5-hole, and the Red Wings force it into overtime. Honestly, boys, from there, I thought we were done. I didn't think it was ever going to go in. I thought this game was a wrap. I kid you not. When he scored that goal, immediately hopped off my couch and I just started freaking out, grabbing my head like, no effing way, dude. No effing way this is happening. Like, this is like, it was almost like a Cinderella story for the Detroit Red Wings at one point. Then you hit reality and checked on the Flyers in the Washington Capitals game where John Tortorella destroyed a lot of Red Wings fans' hopes and dreams of getting into the playoffs by pulling his goalie, which I understand they needed to do it to get the regulation win. But still, everyone knows the whole gist of it, right? If you don't, just go ahead and check into it. Had John Tortorella not pulled his goalie, if it stayed 1-1, the Red Wings would have made it into the playoffs if they would have beaten the Washington Capitals in overtime. But yeah, then you got Patrick Kane going into the shootout, like I said, winning it for the Red Wings. Unfortunately, by the time he scored it, there really was no celebration. There was no hypeness because all the players by then knew their opportunity was gone, which really does suck. Stats for this game: Red Wings outshot 40-33. They lost in the faceoff percentage 45-55. Only 15 block shots this game by the Montreal Canadiens. So Red Wings did a little bit better job at getting the puck on net at least, but still it shouldn't have been a game that went into overtime. I mean, this is not a bad Habs team, but they're at the bottom, right? And you're in the middle. Yeah, they're not great. They got good players, but just one of those games where the Red Wings, like the last game, a couple opportunities they couldn't get out of their zone, and they got beat up because of it. And poor James Reimer, I mean, this guy, he 879 save percentage. That is just ridiculous. Shane Gosberg got another 2 points. He got 3 points last game, so 5 points in his last 2 games. I think that's incredible. Good for him. But someone else take over here. Matt, what did you think about this game? It being the last game of the season.
Man, I mean, not only this game, but the last 2 games, like I've never seen a team like Montreal want to lose out so bad on getting first overall. Like the way that they played, it's just like, you guys know that you've been eliminated for like 2 weeks, right? Like what is going on here? But I get it. The players aren't going to go out there and quit just because they're out. This may sound like loser talk, and let's call it what it is. This is loser talk. It's almost more fun to be a spoiler than to get into the playoffs, because it's just like, we may not be able to get in, but man, we're going to steal your joy, and we're both going to be in misery together. But yeah, I think this game, it was obviously more of the same, the exact same score, and pretty much it was a comeback win again. Yeah, like Perron scoring that goal late, man, I have never been so overjoyed and then so quickly defeated after seeing a game-tying goal. I mean, my body didn't know how to process those emotions. I was like emotionally hungover for the next 2 days. It's like I said, my body has never processed those two polar opposite emotions so quickly in succession. Like the human body is not supposed to go through that. It absolutely is not. Like I'm surprised I'm not in the loony bin right now. But yeah, I kind of got sidetracked there a little bit. Yeah, I think it was if that is the last game of the season, which obviously it was, that what a way to go out than to just late minute, well, really late second, tie the game, go to shootout, win the game. At least you get to go on a high. You're not making the playoffs, but you at least get to say, well, you know what? In that game, we did everything we possibly could to make sure we got the job done. But we had to rely on another team, and you should never really be in the position where you have to rely on another team to get you in. That's just where they were. They took care of business. That's all you can do.
Carlo, give a brief rundown what you thought about the game, the takeaways at least, and then we'll kind of go into overall season thoughts.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was the craziest, like 30 seconds of my emotional life in the last 5 years for fun. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anything like I was pacing. Like, I was up, I was watching with my buddy, shout out D. I was watching at his place, and I mean, obviously, there's a minute left, 45 seconds left, 30 seconds left, and we're pacing and we're like chewing everybody up. We're all emotionally charged and just not happy. And then with 3 seconds left, Perron scores, and we were flipping out. And then I'm just sitting there, like, constantly refreshing the Washington game. And then again, 30 seconds later, it's 2-1 Washington. And I didn't realize at the time, because the score didn't show the goal scorer just yet. It just showed 2-1. So I didn't realize it was an empty net goal. So I'm like, that's it, it's over. And then when I realized it was an empty net goal, then I was even more upset, obviously. And I'm excited. I'm a huge John Tortorella fan. So when I kind of, that was hard. But yeah, that was a crazy 25, 30 seconds. The emotional swing was like something I don't remember the last time I had a swing like that. That was insane. Game wise, again, not great. I mean, it really wasn't great. It was entertaining. It was super exciting because they were able to obviously get 5 goals or 4 goals, I should say, with Perron tying it up. And then Patty Kane icing it in the shootout like the pro that he is. But yeah, defensively, nothing really stood out to me there. Seider played good. I will say Seider had a couple hard games against Montreal. He was playing pretty vicious. And same thing, Edvinsson, couple mistakes, not the end of the world. I would rather Edvinsson make mistakes than watch Mata, Petrie make mistakes, Go Suspiro make mistakes. I'd much rather it be Edvinsson. But yeah, I mean, is it on Reimer because he had a low percentage? Is it on the defense? I mean, I think we kind of all know the answer to that and what our wish list items are, which I'm sure we will get to. But just to call him out, because I thought this kid was lights out, was that Hudson kid in Montreal. Look out. NHL, look out.
Yeah.
That kid is
nasty.
Absolute money. He stood out to me the most out of every player on the ice, regardless of the jersey. That kid was lights out.
Bro, that goal, he scored a goal, didn't he? The first game he got an assist. He scored in the second game, didn't he?
I think I can't even say his name. Uri Slavkovsky tipped it in.
Okay, so really good player. That whole sequence really made me angry, though, on the Red Wing side, because it's like this kid's just standing directly on the blue line, almost just moving his stick like this, and then just puts it in, basically top shelving it almost, and then with Slavkovsky tipping it in. Yeah, I was like, what the hell is going on here? That kid is disgusting. Yeah, Montreal Canadiens fans, I don't know if you guys are watching this, but Red Wings fans that are watching, that kid's going to be dangerous. So we're definitely going to have to watch out for the Montreal Canadiens for years to come with the talent that they have on their team. It is just insanely crazy how talented that kid is and the way that he just moves. Honestly, I hope Axel Sandin Pellikka is somewhat of what he is based on what I saw. If Lane Hudson can continue doing that, ASP, hopefully, I hope you can do that, please. Matt.
Yeah, I think ASP, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
I think ASP could be better. I'm going to be completely honest. And Obviously, I'm biased. I'm a Red Wings fan, but I'll tell you this much. This is why I think he's going to be better. He's doing that in the men's league. Lane Hudson's been playing college. I don't know. That's just me.
We'll just have to wait and see because ASP will be staying in Sweden. That was tipped over to us based on Steve Yzerman's answer to the question asked to him during his pressers. So, yeah, no ASP for another year at least. But if the Swedish Hockey League playoffs end early next year, I definitely could see him making the jump up, signing out the contract and making the jump up to the Grand Rapids Griffins at the very least, right?
Well, I thought you were going to say Red Wings.
Maybe. I mean, it really all depends,
too.
but we're hoping that we're in a playoff spot by then. So maybe we won't have to call them up.
Yeah,
so
fair.
That's what we're hoping on. Before we talk about, just the season in general, what our thoughts are, how we feel about the season ending. The Red Wings did finish the season being the 18th team in the league. They did tie in points, 91 to the Washington Capitals. The Washington Capitals did make the playoffs based on regulation wins. To me, it's going back to that whole point system that we did an episode on where the Red Wings ended up having more overall wins than the Washington Capitals. They lost in overtime more, but however, the Red Wings just won more in overtime and not enough regulation wins. And based on what Yzerman said, yeah, you just got to score more and let other teams score less on you at the end of the day. But boys, overall thoughts about the season, real quick for me, I'm going to give it a letter grade. You guys can give it a letter grade too. I'm going to give this season an A. Only because of the amount of times this team got me out of my couch or out of my seat at Little Caesars Arena, getting me hyped, jumping up and down and screaming with joy. That's the only reason why. I cannot tell you how many times this season that I did that. It just the overall excitement and passion that this team was able to offer to us, the fans. I think it was an A all around. Honestly, I think it exceeded a lot of people's expectations, but also I think it didn't at the same time. But for me, I think they exceeded expectations. I don't believe, if I went back to the episode, I can't remember or not, but I believe I said I would like for this team to be a playoff team, but I don't expect them to because that's what upper management said. But going into next season, the expectation is you have to make the playoffs now. It's been 8 seasons or 7 seasons, however long it's been since we've made the playoffs. So if you were that close this season, the expectation is, yes, we absolutely have to make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But I'm giving it a letter grade of an A because of just the excitement. Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat, the way that all the comebacks happened. I was just very thankful to be a Red Wings fan this season because I haven't seen anything like that in 10, 12 years? Probably since the last time we went to the Stanley Cup final. So who wants to go next? Give their letter grade.
Well, I'm gonna be pretty close to you, Zach. I can't really in good conscience give the season an A. Obviously this season, by our definition of what it should be, it was a success. They played meaningful games in March and April. They were right there in the playoff race. And honestly, if the tiebreaker were different and was wins overall, they'd be in right now. We wouldn't even be having this conversation. We'd be on the podcast previewing game 1. But, it is what it is. I think I'd have to give it an A-. I think there's just a few points in the season. Obviously, they were terrible in December. The March collapse. I think in Lalonde's press conference a couple days ago, he was talking about how the team just never quit. They were second or third or something overall in the league in terms of comeback wins. But, they gave away a lot of points too. One of the games I can think about that is still fresh in my mind is the San Jose Sharks game. Literally the only game I went to this season. It was probably their worst performance. They were up 4-0 and they lost in overtime. There was too many performances like that. Too many games where they just wouldn't show up on time. And sure, they can come back, but they can't do that every game. And the deficit just got too heavy and they couldn't overcome it. I just think that there were some things overall as a team and the way that they play, especially the team defense, that really needs to be ironed out next season if they want to make the playoffs and still be right in the mix. Because, a season like this, they're definitely susceptible to having some aggression next year. And obviously some of that has to do with what the move Steve Yzerman is going to make. And it's no secret that he has a huge offseason, between signing 2 different players long-term deals, re-signing Patrick Kane, plus the other pending free agents. He's got a lot of work to do. He's got a lot of work to do to flip the team around and make them not only as competitive, but even more competitive next year. So I think overall the season was a success, though. I mean, it was an 11-point increase from last season. Like, by definition, that's a success. You cannot say that this season was worse than last season. I guess if you're one of those people who expected playoffs, sure, maybe you're a little upset. But man, listen, look at the standings. They missed the playoffs literally by 0 points. Not even a point, by 0 points. Like that's just absurd. That's absolutely absurd. One more win and they win, and they're in. So yeah, I think it's definitely been a success. One huge thing I'd like to see next season, which however the cap shakes out, this may be necessary. I'd like to see maybe 1 or 2 more rookies on the team, some young guys from Grand Rapids. I think this team needs it. Lalonde said in his press conference that he wanted it. I think Yzerman at this point is going to say, okay, my veterans aren't really working out too well. I got some expiring guys. Let's just bring up guys in the ELCs who are ready to play and give them a spot. So, yeah, I think overall it was successful, but they really need to iron some stuff out next season to be back where they were this year.
Yeah, and Carla, you and I both said, I mean, we definitely would not like to be Steve Yzerman this offseason. But before we go into that type of discussion, give a brief rundown about your letter grade for the whole entire season, just a brief rundown on the whole entire season. Goods or bads, whatever you got.
Yeah, so my letter grade is a B. And the reason is, I mean, maybe call me too hard on the team or just too hard on the way my thought process is, but for me, an A in any which way, whether it's a minus or a plus or just a solid letter, involves playoffs. Now, Matt, you bring up a great point. It's not like they lost by 1 point or 2 points. They lost the playoff spot by 0 points, and it had to do with just regulation wins. But that to me has so much clout, and there's a lot of merit behind regulation wins. And the reason we didn't get those regulation wins, to me, stands out the most. And that's kind of what dictates my letter grade of a B, is just that. Steve Yzerman said it in his presser that, teams lose their top number 1 guy all the time. They still find ways to win. Yep. We didn't do that. We didn't do that.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we didn't do that in March. We didn't do that in December. And that's very concerning. Like, stuff like that tells me we're not a playoff team. Like, if you can't saddle up when your one guy goes out, sure. Is that one guy Dylan Larkin? I don't want to discredit Dylan Larkin here. It's not what I'm trying to do, but you need to saddle up and figure out a way to win. Or I really love the way Steve framed it, was keep the puck out of your net. Yeah. And when you're having fundamental collapses, and I'm pretty sure Steve used the word fundamental. I mean, to me, that, again, you're not ready. You're not ready. You're whether it's the coaching staff that's not ready, whether it's the system that's not the right system to be ready, or whether that's the players that are just simply not ready. The team just wasn't baked enough yet. They're still a little gooey. But the hope, what we saw come out of the last 2 weeks, is insane, because I honestly feel that these young players needed to play competitive hockey for 82 games to activate level 11, right? Was Sider playing at level 9, level 10? Sure he was. He's been a menace. Has Raymond been playing at level 10? I don't think so. Last season, I'll be honest, I was very hard on Lucas Raymond last season.
I think a lot of people
this season, yeah, I agree. And to see the way he handled his offseason, came back with that strength and size I mentioned earlier, and then just went absolute God mode in the last 2 weeks of the season to end with, what did he end with, 31 goals?
31 or 32, I believe.
31 or 32. That to me is more exciting than making the playoffs and getting bounced by the Rangers within 7 or 8, 9 days. that's more exciting for me as a fan, as a diehard fan. I would much rather see these kids activate level 11 than make it to the postseason in 23-24 to get bounced within a week or two. So anyways, that's just my spiel on it. Letter grade's a B. Next season, 100% expectation is to make the playoffs. 100%. And that comes down to, some of the other players turning it on, right? Activating and getting to level 11. But a big part of it's going to be Stevie Y and his decisions, and I guess his brain trust of getting this team to, September. And what's that going to look like? And that's something I'm really excited to jump into with you guys on. What is this team going to look like come September? Matt brought up a good point with a couple of young guys coming up. I'd love to see that too, but there's a way more to it than just having these guys take a spot. I think we all would agree on that. There's a lot more to it. I definitely think there are some contracts that need to be moved out because, as I mentioned on previous episodes, these young guys are being blocked by plug players who are garbage. They are no good. So that's going to be
some of them are no good.
Maybe don't use the word garbage. They're good at their job, but they're definitely not what we wanted them to be. So slightly garbage, yes.
They're not playing at the level they should be for what they're being paid.
Yeah, if you're not playing at an NHL caliber of level, and we're comparing and talking about NHL caliber athletes, you're garbage. See you later.
Okay, so
I'm not sugarcoating anything, man. It's either you're good or you're garbage. That's the scale.
No, and there are some definite players on this team that are still with caps or salary cap hits on this roster, like Petrie. Some would even say Justin Hall. Some would say, some other players like Andrew Kopp. I'm not going to sit here and say all of them are garbage. There definitely are some, like the first two that I mentioned. I will agree with you, Carlo. But let's talk into a brighter note. So I got a couple questions for you guys here. Well, actually, I'll just ask this one first, and I'll ask the second one later down the line because we will be now talking into. Well, let me ask this first: who was the team MVP this season for you guys? For me, honestly, it's got to be Lucas Raymond or Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
If I had to pick two, it's Lucas Raymond and Patrick Kane. Without Patrick Kane, we probably wouldn't have been in the race. I'll say that. But without Lucas Raymond, we probably wouldn't have been in the race as when it got closer to the end of the season because he just activated his clutch gene out of nowhere. So it's one of those two for me. I'm just going to pick both. But if you each had to pick one, let's hear it.
Raymond all day, 100%.
Yeah, I got to be completely honest. I think my easy answer is Raymond, but the way this team looked when Larkin went out, obviously the 7-game losing streak or 8 games or 10 games or 15 games, I don't even know how long it was. Either way, it was terrible. You see how this team plays when Larkin's not in the lineup. I think it's still Larkin. He came back end of March or mid-March. That's when they started winning again, and they made a little bit of a playoff push. It's even kind of the same thing really in December when he was out for a little while, when he got literally knocked out on the ice by the scumbag trash Ottawa Senators. I think it's Larkin. This team plays to the tone that he sets. I think it's definitely still him. But you know what? Raymond's right there. I mean, if we could give out a co-MVP, I give it to both of them, but I think it's still have to lean Larkin.
My second question is Kane going to leave the Detroit Red Wings? I'm on the fence. I'm honestly 50-50 at this point because I can't answer it. People have been asking me even before the season ended. But after what I heard, it's very much in the air. But from what Steve Yzerman said, it sounded like that there is mutual interest. So that's kind of why I'm on the 50-50. Matt, what do you think?
So here's the thing on Patrick Kane. And I'm going to preface everything I'm about to say just by saying that right now, what's the date? April 21st. Right now, April 21st, this is way too early to worry about something like this. I mean, the team just got eliminated from the playoffs. They just had to end the season the press conferences, Like they haven't even really had time to gather their feelings or process what their emotions and what they're feeling right now. I think with Patrick Kane, I think the reasons that he signed with the team are not suddenly gone. I think he's seen how fun this team is to play for, the great young pieces that we have, and Raymond and Sider, of course, our fearless captain, Dylan Larkin. I think he's seen the way that the city has embraced him. Like, let's be honest, guys. This time last year, we still hated him. We still hated Patrick Kane. Like, he was like public
I
enemy
didn't.
number one.
I did not. I
Yeah,
did
there you
not.
go.
Hey, I just want to go on
he
record.
wasn't on the pod last year, so we called him
Okay,
out,
that's
or
fair.
at
You
least
and I did, but
yeah,
Carlos
we
still
called him
did.
out for
He was
going
somewhere
over
else
to the New
hating him,
York
but he hated
Rangers.
him too. Yeah, and I think he just sees the way that not only this team and the city embraced him, but the locker room embraced him. I think for a guy like him, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to term. Everyone is saying that, well, he's for sure going to leave this team because he wants to go. He's 35. He wants to win another cup. If he was still worried about cups, he wouldn't have signed with the Detroit Red Wings. Like,
Bingo.
nobody thought this team was winning the cup this year. We thought maybe, sure, they could get into the playoffs, and hell, they almost did. But nobody, I hope, I hope Steve Yzerman wasn't saying, like, come sign with us. You'll win a cup this year. Guaranteed. Book it. No, that's not the reason that he signed here. And I think for a guy like him, he's made his money. He's won his cups. He's a 3-time cup champion. I think he's good on cups, to be honest. Like, sure, does he want to go for a fourth? I don't see why not. But I think for a guy, for him, at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to term. He's a father now. He's got a family. He just moved him over to Detroit. I gotta imagine that when he was thinking signing somewhere, he did consult on his family on where they want to live, and they said, "Yeah, Detroit's pretty nice. We could see ourselves being here for this year and maybe a few years in the future." So I think there's a third party that we're not considering is his family. He doesn't want to uproot them again and move to wherever he would go. But that being said, yeah, there's still the possibility he doesn't, and if he doesn't, that's okay. We still got half a season from him. I think what he taught our young players in Lucas Raymond's, Mo Sider, well, I guess mostly Lucas Raymond's, I think what he taught them is going to be invaluable. And it's going to be things that they're going to carry throughout the rest of their career, regardless if he's still playing on the team or not. So I if you had to ask me, I personally think he will resign. I think it's all going to come down to how long he wants to. If he's looking for like a 5-year deal, I don't think Steve is going to go for that. 2 to 3 years, I could see that. I think Steve would be okay with that. I think it lines up pretty well with what we reasonably think the timeline is going to be for this team regarding playoffs and competing for a Stanley Cup. So yeah, like honestly, for Patrick Kane, that's the kind of veteran leadership I want on this team. Someone who's won Stanley Cups and can still play, and he's not just a useless plug player. That's the exact type of veteran leadership this team needs. I think Steve Yzerman knows that. I think the rest of the team knows that. Of course, that we know that. So yeah, I guess that's my long-winded answer of saying yes. I think he'll be back. It's only a matter of how long is he going to be here.
Yeah, very well said,
Yeah.
Matt. And I'm with you. I agree. I think Patty Kane is going to come back. I think though the one thing is you can't look too much into the media pressers and what Patrick Kane's saying. You got to realize that though it's very early on, like you said, Matt, it's April 21st, way too early to be thinking about signing, but it's never too early to negotiate. And that's what Patrick Kane's doing in his media pressers. He's obviously got his guards up. He's been around the block. It's Patrick Kane. He has the brand power. He's got the brand power that's also 35 years old. So he's going to play the game very, very well. He's going to negotiate for himself with the media, which is exactly what I think he's doing. But Matt, you bring up the fact that he's got a family. You bring up the fact that he's 35. Does he want to really be bouncing around, moving around, getting and gelling with different teams? No, I don't think so.
His third team in 3 seasons, too, mind you, if he does
Right.
end up leaving.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I just don't see it. He's got a crazy good relationship, so it seems, with Mo Sider, with Lucas Raymond, obviously with Alex DeBrincat. But I mean,
Yeah,
Patrick,
I didn't even
this
mention
is
him.
maybe looking at it way too close. But like, Patty Kane's son, Alex DeBrincat's son, they seem like they're best buddies. Like they're always wearing each other's jerseys. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of merit with that maybe a lot of people overlook. And again, maybe I'm looking at it too closely. We'll find out eventually, but I just can't see him moving around at that age and what he's trying to accomplish. I feel like he wants to stick with a team and kind of identify his identity within that team. And I hope it's the Detroit Red Wings. I think the Detroit Red Wings hope that he kind of thinks alike and wants to be there as much as we all want him to be. So yeah, I honestly, I think he's going to stay. I just think he's negotiating, and good for you, dude. You got to do that. The negotiation is all about the words you choose to use when you're talking to, obviously, the person you're trying to negotiate with, but also when you're talking to people who the person you're trying to negotiate with is listening to. It's a huge game, right? So yeah, I think he's coming back. I think they got to sign Mo and Ray first. I think you kind of need to respect that. But I anticipate that happening. Obviously, I anticipate that happening in the next 4 weeks, 4 to 5, maybe 6 weeks. And then I think you're going to see the decisions come on Patty Kane first, probably Shane Gostisbehere second, and then David Perron third. And that's probably going to take us into closer to the draft, I guess.
So I kind of want to play devil's advocate a little bit here, and you guys can, either one of you can speak on this. So one thing that came up, and I can't remember if it was Patrick Kane or Steve Yzerman, whoever said this, the Detroit Red Wings were the best opportunity for him to give him a shot after his hip resurfacing injury, right? We've seen other players in the league have to retire like shortly after because of that. I don't know if it was money. I don't know if it was the roster spot that we were able to give him. He always said, I've always wanted to play with Alex DeBrincat again. Okay, you can add that one. I think that one's like more on the lighter side, but what else was it really? Was it the fact that we could give him a top 6 spot? Was it this? Was it that? Now that we gave him that opportunity to showcase he can still play in the league after getting that surgery, that's kind of where my 50-50 comes in, right? Because we gave him that opportunity. He did well. Is there going to be a team out there that's going to give him the moon and the galaxy all together to come play for them? I don't know. I'm right there with you, Matt. I think the extension it would be in the 2 to 3 year range. I think that's probably what Patrick Kane wants. Maybe he wants 4. I can't imagine that, but it's probably going to be 2 to 3 years. But what's that?
He wants to play until 40.
Yeah, I mean, what's that AAV going to come in at? Because like you said, Carlo, the Raymond and Sider contracts, that's going to be anywhere from more than likely 15 to 17, maybe $18 million just between those two players combined. Then you throw in a Patrick Kane. I see a lot of people saying it could be anywhere from $3.5 million. You just front load it with signing bonuses, whatever performance bonuses, all the way up to, I've seen people say $7 million because he's a point per game player, which he is. He's just under it. And you have to respect the man based on the player that he is. So that's kind of where I'm at the 50-50 mark with it, playing the devil's advocate a little bit. Do you guys kind of see where I'm getting at with this? That he just utilized this as a stage to showcase to these other organizations.
Yeah, but where's he going to go? Where's he going though? Like, let's just look at it in the scope of Original Six for a second, right?
Because that's all he wants to play for,
right? He played for Chicago.
Seems like
I'm just looking at it in that scope. I'm not saying it's the right scope, right? At the end of the day, I don't know how much merit that has in his brain, but you look at the Original Six teams. Chicago, I don't think they're going to. Everyone's talking about Patrick Kane going back to Chicago. I don't see it happening. Like, I just don't see that happening. The Rangers, I don't see him going back to the Rangers. I mean, Panarin connection. I think the DeBrincat connection is a little bit bigger and a little bit more powerful than the Panarin connection. So I'm going to X out the Rangers, right? But then, Detroit's there, and Detroit's on the rise. Montreal, they're coming. Buffalo, not Buffalo. They're not even an Original Six team. I don't know, man. I look at the original 6 teams that have some money, and the Red Wings stand out to me the most. The fan base, the arena. He's played there already before. He's got a feel for it. He's gelled with people. Am I being super biased? Absolutely. But, like Toronto, Boston, I don't see them being able to sign him.
One thing, Carlo, that I do want to point out that this just popped in my head after you saying like teams like, let's use Toronto as an example. I mean, you can look at Chicago. Big city, Detroit, downtown Detroit is a big city. But there is so much more that Michigan as a whole has to offer to.
Oh, yeah, dude. The amenities alone of Michigan are insane. Oh my God.
Can he get that in a Toronto? Can he get that in a Montreal? I
No.
personally, I don't know, but I don't think he even wants to go to a Canadian market. I don't think he wants to go in Canada. I just don't foresee that happening. And you look at all the other teams around. Could he go to some place like Tampa if they actually had the cap for it? Sure. But does he want to go down to Tampa? I don't know. But yeah, I think just my thought process here is like, maybe he doesn't want to go to a city that's a huge city, right? Because he's got his kid, he's got his family. Alex DeBrincat's already here. He's the American boy. So I don't see a Canada market or a big city name. Like, does he want to go to the LA Kings? Probably not. Who wants to put his kid and his family in that type of situation? And then having to spend a lot of time with Pierre-Luc Dubois.
At the end of the day, nobody knows. This is the thing that
sucks.
It's completely speculation. Like, again, to have that fast forward button to go ahead, like 4 to 6 weeks would be so cool right now because nobody knows. Nobody knows. Matt, what do you know though? You got to know something.
Yeah, I definitely have inside information for sure. I'm happy that you're playing devil's advocate, Zach, because when you're negotiating contracts, like you'd be kind of a fool to not at least see what you can get elsewhere. Like, let's say hypothetically that Steve has already had preliminary talks with Patrick Kane. He says, all right, so obviously I got to get my 2 big contracts signed first, but if I have the money left over, I'm going to give you $4 million a year or $5 million a year. Whatever it is, I'll give you a 3-year deal. Let's say hypothetically it's a 3-year deal. You're making $5 million a year. Patrick Kane looks at that and says, yeah, okay, sounds like a pretty good offer. But let me see how much I can get from Boston, from Toronto, from Dallas, from Edmonton. He wouldn't want to play with Connor McDavid? That'd be awesome. Imagine playing with Connor McDavid after you've won 3 cups and you're in your late career. He could give them a added offensive boost that they need. My point is just, you never take the first offer, right? That's just negotiating 101. Okay, cool. Great offer. But what else can I get? He's going to talk to his agent and say, well, what do you think I'm worth? What do you think I can get from the other 31 teams? What if I want to go to Utah? Will Utah pay me $9 million? Who knows? But I think at this point in Patrick Kane's career, that's probably going to play a factor, I would imagine. But yeah, for all the reasons that we've already said about Detroit, I think it's really going to come down to, number one, what we're willing to pay and how long we're going to be willing to pay him, and number 2, what else he can get on the open market. I don't think there's a lot of GMs out there that are going to pay a 36-year-old a ton of money to come over and play for them for only a few years. They're pretty smart with the way they build their teams, and a lot of the teams with the big guns, they have a lot of money tied up in all of their big name players. I mean, McDavid and Draisaitl, Matthews, Nylander, Marner. There's a lot of money in all those star players. So it's really going to come down to who the highest bidder is and where Patrick Kane thinks he wants to stay for the rest of his career. That's all it really comes down to.
All right. Well, up next, we have Daddy P, David Perron, the 3.3 second man of tying up the games late for us. And this is another unrestricted free agent that the Red Wings should have, at least to me, I feel like you should have strong considerations bringing him back. I believe that he brought in a lot of veteran leadership. He almost, to me, is like having the second coach that actually plays out on the ice with the boys.
Bingo.
As well as on the bench and then at the press conferences after the games. So to me, I think that there's very much mutual feelings with both parties that they both want to have him stay in Detroit. I think David Perron wants to be here. I really do. I don't think he really wants to go to another team. I don't think he likes going through free agency. He's never really had to do it until he came to Detroit. And what sold him was Steve Yzerman and the fact that we have a lot of good young players and other good players coming in from free agency too. Some, maybe not all, to your guys' opinions. But other than that, yeah, I feel like David Perron, I think there's a really good chance for him to come back. But like we keep mentioning, it has to be for a bottom 6 role. Maybe you can put him in top 9 somewhere. If there's an injury that comes up, you can put him in the top 6. But I can't keep putting him on the top line. I can't keep putting him on the second line. It has to be on a bottom 6 role for me. His legs just aren't what they used to be. His production overall is kind of going on a downward slope. It's not falling off a cliff, but it's going down a slope a little bit. But in terms of a cap hit and contract extension, 1 to 2 years most. That's the most that I would go. And you have to be very careful with the cap hit too. I mean, we just went over how after Lucas Raymond and Mo Seider, you sign them, then more than likely it's going to be Patrick Kane because he's the next biggest name on the list, right? So for David Perron, you have to wait a little bit, and I think David Perron slightly understands, and I don't think he's really worried about it. Cap hit for me, I'd like it to be anywhere between like if you can make it down to $1 million, I don't think it's going to get down to that, but the $1 to $3 million range, I think that's probably what you're going to be looking at. Would I be shocked if it's near $4 million? No, but you could probably find someone else who could do the exact same thing as David Perron for that price, right? So I'm going to stick between the $1 to $3 million range. Carlo, what do you think about David Perron and him coming back, and what can you expect to see out of it?
Well, you said it, man, and I've been saying this for probably a month or two now, that David Perron is that head coach for the boys in the room. We know Lalonde doesn't address the team after games. I bet you David Perron does. I really think that he just brings that fatherly figure. You know what I mean? The checks and balances, the holding people accountable. I mean, when Detroit went on that crazy winning streak, it was David Perron who said, "That's it. We're getting 19 points in the next X amount of games." It was him. It was him who kind of drew that and manifested that. I love David Perron. I'm a huge David Perron fan. I really don't think there's anybody else in the league. I'm sure there is, but that I can think of off. It's hard to just say. It's not easy to just, this person reminds me of David Perron. Like, you got to dig to get it. But I don't think there's anybody that's easy to mention that can protect the puck like him, that can do the checks and balances and the accountability role, and just that veteran leadership presence like David Perron. So I absolutely would bring him back on a 1-year deal. And I would preface and say, listen, David, this is a year-to-year thing, right? We're going to bring you back for a year, and it's got to be under $3 million. It has to be under $3 million. And hey, we'll revisit this next year. Do we want to keep you is the long-term plan to keep you for 2 or 3 more? Yes. But Steve Yzerman needs to be very careful. And the reason why I think he's going to do a 1-year deal is because now he needs to look at, okay, if I sign David Perron for 2 or 3, am I now potentially blocking someone else from coming up from below, the Grand Rapids Griffins? We're seeing that this year. We're seeing that blockade based off of these contracts that Stevie handed out. So he needs to be very careful with players like David Perron and how long or how much term he's going to give them. I would like to see a 1-year deal and let him know that it's year to year. We're taking this year to year. And that's because we cannot sacrifice young talent that is banging the door down to get on this team. So for me, is he coming back? I hope so. It's got to be under $3 million, and it's got to be a 1-year deal. And to your point, Zach, I really think that David Perron is going to gladly accept that, because I don't think he wants to bounce around anymore. I think he's found a home here. He's obviously gelling with absolutely everybody. People look up to him in the room. They're not afraid to say that. I do expect to see David Perron, Daddy P, back in the winged wheel next year for sure.
Before you go, Matt, both of you, I mean, Matt, you brought it up first, the young players. Steve Yzerman mentioned that he wants to bring up a couple players. He mentions Berggren, and then he mentions Johansson, and how they'll have to go through waivers next year if we don't sign them. And so anyone can pick them up. And I would expect teams to pick up both players if they ended up doing so. And so, if you have to bring up both players, which Carlo, Steve Yzerman made mention of that. So you're exactly right. Yep. We have a decent amount of contracts that are essentially blockades for some of these young players. I mean, fans are even calling out for Carter Mazur, Marco Kasper, Derek and Sebastian Costa. So there's a lot that has to go on. And so can David Perron be a blockade if you do sign him for longer than 1-year deal? Absolutely, it can happen. But I'm right there with you. And so, Matt, what do you think about the David Perron situation? Would you like him back? Do you think he comes back? What do you think it's going to have to take to get him back?
So I like what you said there, Carlo. That is exactly how Steve negotiates these contracts of veterans. He does not give term to veterans at all. It just doesn't really happen. Yeah, it's going to go year by year. I'd say probably like 2.25. That's a good number for him to come in on. But yeah, it'll have to be a pretty low cap hit if he wants to stick around. And I don't think Prawn has a problem with that. You know, he wants to be here. Money's not an issue for him. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's made his money. He's literally the team dad. I think a guy like him, if he were to leave in free agency, that would honestly leave a pretty big gaping hole in the locker room, and a big voice will be gone from the locker room as far as like the veteran leadership goes. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does he wear a letter? Is he an assistant captain, or am I wrong about that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he rotates with Cop.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, Cop should not have a letter at all. He shouldn't even have a wing wheel on his sweater, but that's a conversation for another day. Yeah, I think that he's a big veteran piece. Of course, I mean, he could still play. He's obviously not the player that he was back when he was playing for St. Louis on their cup run, or even Vegas before that. But he can still contribute. He's not totally useless out there. So I'd
Yeah.
like to see him come back. One year deal, that's totally fine. And if at the end of the next season he wants to retire or come back, I'm fine with either one.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Matt. Yeah, and having the A, I think that's a great representation. Once again, speaking on the fact that he is, the second coach on the team dad, the one who puts the checks and balances in a line, right? And so, moving on to the next big name, essentially, because he was the highest scoring defenseman on the team, that would be Shane Ghostbear. This one's really tough for me, boys. I mean, I can see the reason why we would want to bring him back, but I don't think it makes sense in terms of the cap hit and the term that he's looking for. Him being a left shot playing right D, it obviously works, right? It works. Is that what we really need? No, I don't think so. But the versatility there is obviously great. But to me, it comes down to cap hit and term. He's probably looking for a longer-ish term of a deal, anywhere from like 4 to maybe 6 years. Probably looking anywhere from like $5 to $7 million each season. So for me, it's tough. I mean, I would love to have him back because of his production. I mean, Ghost Air reaching up and grabbing that puck, that was magnificent. But for me, looking at the cap and looking at the team and the way it's structured, and the fact that you still have Petrie and Justin Hall, it's tough. I don't think that there's very much room for him on this roster, especially now that you're adding Simon Edvinsson and then potentially Albert Johansson. It's tough for me. I'm going to say, for me, I guess I'm not bringing him back. I'm just going to say I'm not bringing him back. And it's tough for me to say that because of the points that he does bring. Carlo, yeah, you look like you're a little frustrated. So what's your answer there in terms of what you think or what you want, and I guess what you think is going to happen? Do I want him back? No, only because of the term and the cap hit. I think you can go out and find someone else to replace him if that's what it takes, but I think he goes somewhere else.
Okay, so let me ask you this. If Hall, Petrie, and Kopp's contracts came off the books after this season, how would you answer the question of bringing back Shane Gosper?
Am I bringing him back to play on the left or the right side?
You're bringing him back to play the role he played for us this season under the circumstance and the hypothetical that Hall is a UFA this year. I know he's not, but his $3.4 million is off the books. Petrie's 2.34 whatever is off the book, and Andrew Kopp's 5.6 is off the books. So, I mean, we're talking about $10 million off the books. Are you bringing back Shane Gosper as a no-brainer now, or are you holding firm on your answer? Because the point I'm trying to make, I really do want Shane Gosper back. We need to respect the fact that he put up points this year, and he had some clutch moments. Is he a liability on defense? Yeah, but that's because he pushes so hard on the offense. And if he's not in the lineup, were we playing meaningful games in April? Probably not.
No, yeah, probably not. I think we really discredit how important he was for this last little stretch here.
Yes, and we just have to kind of respect the fact that he put up some big moments for us that resulted in big points, that resulted in big wins. which then further resulted in playing a meaningful 82 games of hockey. The point I'm making with those other contracts is I really think Steve needs to move Hall's contract. He needs to try to move Petry's contract, although I don't think that's going to happen. Hall and Andrew Copp, those two contracts, they need to go. They need to go in order for this to work. And this goes right back to Patrick Kane, David Perron, and even in Air Ghost. I think those three come back. Don't worry about Mo and Ray. Those contracts they're getting their contracts. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But in order to get these veteran guys back, that Copp contract's got to go. It's terrible.
Would you throw Fabry's contract in there because it's 1 year with $4 million remaining?
To be honest with you, man, it's hard for me to decide on that one because, like, when you look at the amount of ice time he gets and you look at his goals for percentages and stuff like that, he's actually worth the money. I would probably eat that for one more year. I would much rather Fabry on the team than Andrew Copp. Fabry's a gamer.
Me too.
He is not like he is a gamer.
I think for me, the way I look at it is, I mean, Daniel Sprong, you look at him, I mean, for the end of the season, I don't know if we're going to bring him back. He was going to be one of the next people. So I guess we could just jump into Daniel Sprong. So I'm sorry, Matt, you really didn't get the talk on Ghost Bear yet, but we'll give you the opportunity to. But for Sprong, I don't think you bring Sprong back. You could replace him with Jonathan Berggren, right? Mm-hmm. But then there's Fabry. So are you keeping Fabry down in the bottom six, and then Michael Rasmussen in the bottom six, and then Jonathan Berggren is then on your second line on your left-handed wing? Is that how it's going to go?
Probably shouldn't start the season that way, but you should give him an opportunity to get up there.
So then who plays second line on the left wing?
Patrick Kane.
Who plays the right?
There you go.
Put Berggren on the right.
Jake Gensel. I'll throw a curveball for you fellas.
Or Jake Gensel's one, but I've been seeing some noise about Stammer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We all,
but then again, that slots Berggren down to the third line now.
Right. So there's a lot of things that are coming into play here. And so that's why I'm saying, like, I mean, I think Fabry could be one of those players, because then if you don't think Bergers could be a top six player, then you got to make room for him on the middle six somehow. And that's both Sprong and Fabry. And you can even include David Perron in there. You just, we just talked about it, where there's all these blockades. I firmly believe Fabry is a blockade, but you're right, Carlo. I do think that what he did this season was valuable based on his ice time, but the amount of money he makes, I think that $4 million just does not add up to his production level. Before we go too deep into the rabbit hole, Matt, what do you think about the Ghost Bear situation? What would you like to do?
Well, I mean, me personally, even regardless of what contracts we have with Copp and Hall, which I do firmly believe at least one of those is going to get moved. Maybe both. I could see both, but at least one will get moved. I think it has to happen this offseason after obviously all our big signings. But I'd like to see him back. I think he brings some element on the power play that we've really been missing. And I think if you're going to get rid of a player like Gostisbehere, you'd also probably simultaneously have to try and replace him in free agency, because I mean, most Sider can play quarterback on the power play. He doesn't really thrive at it. And Gostisbehere absolutely thrives at it. That's pretty much one of the main reasons we signed him, is we need a reliable power play quarterback. I may be getting a little ahead of myself, but maybe you could sign him for one more year, say bye-bye to him next year, and then bring up ASP. I know I'm on the ASP train real bad. It's kind of a problem. But yeah, I'd like to see him back. I really think the element he brings to this team, as far as his offense goes, that's not easily replaced. And yeah, he's a liability defensively. I really think that's not a problem if we have other players who can play defense. Obviously, we don't, so that'll definitely be something we have to fix. But yeah, you can make up for his lack of defensive acumen, if you want to say that, just by pairing him for reliable D-man. That's what you really need to do. So yeah, I like him back. I'd say another 1 year deal. I don't think I want more than 1 year.
I don't know if that's what he wants. I think he wants longer term.
Well,
That's
yeah,
just me,
I don't
but
know.
I would agree with you. If you could do it for 1 year, maybe even 2, that would be fantastic. But Matt, since you're already speaking on the topic, why don't you go ahead and touch on Daniel Sprong real quick? Is this a player that you would want back? Me personally, I don't think he's coming back. I really don't. As much as
Yeah,
Red Wings fans loved him in the middle of the season, he quickly fell off, right? And I don't
yeah.
know if that's because of the way he was managed or because teams just automatically figured him out or what. But I mean, he was thriving on that fourth line, which was great, but I don't think he's looking to play fourth line.
No, I don't think so either. And I think he's actually pretty much like the poor man's Alex DeBrincat. Like he's a goal scorer, but probably more streaky than Alex DeBrincat. And when he's not scoring, he doesn't really do anything else. So yeah, I would definitely I'd say that the experiment wasn't a failure, but I don't think he's a guy that you should prioritize bringing back. And for his perspective, I don't think he'd want to come back. He got on this team and like he's playing fourth line most of the year. That's I don't think that's what he was looking for in free agency. And he only made like what just north of $1 million. I think he's gonna go elsewhere and see what if he can make a little more money on another team. So yeah, I'm gonna say no to him coming back.
Carlo?
I'm right there as well. I think Sprong. I just don't think this team with this makeup, this group, is the team for him to have the role that he wants. So yeah, I don't think he's going to come back, and I kind of look at him as like a blockade that I think I'd rather have one of our Grand Rapid Griffins guys come up, potentially take that spot. So I think that's going to be an easy mutual decision for the Red Wings to make and for Daniel Sprong to make, and that's not a bash on Sprong. I thought he had a really good season for the most part.
Yeah.
Obviously, the latter half wasn't great. I just don't think that his makeup fits with the way this team is built right now, and what it's going to look like in the next 3-4 months. By the time we get to September, I just think he's kind of going to be slotted out. It sucks, but it happens. That's what happens in this business of hockey. So I think it'll be an easy mutual decision, but I don't expect Sprong back.
Yeah, I'll agree with everything that you both said. Going into Veleno, we'll do Veleno next, and then the last player will be Christian Fischer. Joe Veleno is an interesting case because he is an RFA technically still with the Detroit Red Wings. I believe he's 24 years old now, maybe 23. Correct me if I'm wrong, boys. So someone wants to check on that real quick. But
I think he's the same age as Sider.
Last product of Ken Holland.
24.
24.
Oh,
last
okay.
product of Ken Holland. He did exactly what I thought he would. I thought if he reached the 30-point mark, which I believe he did, I thought that was going to be a successful season for someone who was going to be the 4C of this team. That's exactly what he was. He produced better than he did last year. At times, he looked better than he did in previous seasons. Something in me, though, was still expecting a little bit more out of him. I thought there was going to be an instance where we kind of saw with Lucas Raymond where not the full clutch gene was going to activate, but something in him was going to put him closer to 40 points. I thought maybe he could take that step up when Dylan Larkin went out. What was that in March? And they put him up on the 1C spot for that little bit of time. I think it was just only for a game because that experiment completely failed. He just isn't turning out into the player that we thought he could be. Am I bringing him back? Probably not, because I think he wants, unless you're signing him to a 1-year deal that's like worth $1.5 million to tell him like, hey, like be our 4C again. I'm not bringing him back.
Yep.
I just can't
100%.
because if he wants something like Michael Rasmussen, I can't. $3.2 million for 3 years. I can't do that for someone like Joe Veleno, because then once again, that takes up a spot where, as much as I don't want to, you could put Marco Kasper as the 4C if you really wanted to. Nate Danielson, Amadeus Lombardi. We actually have options in Grand Rapids that we could utilize, or you could just go out in free agency, go get a veteran who's good on the PK that is a serviceable 4C at the same time. Maybe you can get him on the power play. I don't know. You're probably not putting your 4C on the power play, but I don't know. For me, I think Joe Veleno is going to get packaged up in a deal this summer, personally. I know Steve Yzerman really likes Joe Veleno and what he does, but if it's not on a 1-year contract, I don't see him coming back. And I don't think the Red Wings really see it fit there any more than what he's already serviced us. So if it's anything more than 1 year deal, I'm not buying it, and I don't think it's going to work out. Carlo, you went first last time, so Matt, you go.
I think just with Joe Veleno, pretty much every single season I've watched him play, I've been waiting for him to hit that extra gear, and I think now we can comfortably say that there is no extra gear. This is just what he is. So I'd be totally fine with him leaving, getting traded away. It's like you said, Zach, that could definitely be a spot for Lombardi or Marco Casper. I think I'd really like to see them in the 4C because I don't think they'll stay there. I think that's going to be a stepping stone for them to slot up higher into the lineup where they might belong. Because, we've been talking about Marco Casper since he got drafted. He could be our 2C or our 3C. We never once said this guy's a 4C, and that's what he's going to be his entire career. That's what Joe Veleno is going to be his entire career as a 4C. Maybe he goes to a really bad team like San Jose or Anaheim, and maybe he gets more minutes.
Zadina, his draft mate.
Yeah, maybe he can go reunite with his best friend Zadina, and they can be minus 100 combined on the year, and just play higher up in the lineup and get more ice time. I don't know. I just don't think he's ever going to be more than a 4C on this team, and he's an effective 4C. Like, I'm not really trying to take anything away from him. Like, as far as 4Cs go, he's actually pretty decent. Like, I think a lot of teams would look at him as their 4C and be like, yeah, I'm okay with this. But I don't know. I just think this team, with the youth waiting down in Grand Rapids, and like we said, the roadblocks on the team, I think Veleno's one of those roadblocks. And I think if you trade him off, you can make room for Casper. And I don't know. I think if Casper takes that 4C, I don't think he's going back down in Grand Rapids. He's going to take it and run with it. So, yeah. Sayonara, Veleno.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I think if you package him up in a deal to a team that is somewhat of a Stanley Cup final running team, he plays as the 4C, and then they kind of keep him long-term because they might not have prospects in their prospect pool. And so that's someone you can keep on the long-term that eventually can move up in your lineup. But yeah, that's just unfortunately not the case with the Red Wings. Carlo, Joe Veleno.
Yeah, I'm right there with Matt. I'm right there with both of you guys. It's kind of funny to think about a 24-year-old as a block plug type of player, but I think we have to consider that with Veleno because I think he's probably at his ceiling. So for me, you said Marco Casper, and you really ripped it right off my tongue because it's exactly what I was thinking. Is do we put Marco Casper in that 4C role with a full understanding that he's not going to stay there, but we have a player who's not at his ceiling, who's got a whole ton of upside playing 4C. He's going to want to go out there and play hard with whatever minutes he gets to inch his way up that lineup. That's the 4C I want. That dog. I want that dog, playing 4C. I don't think Veleno has that dog in him.
No.
I've watched him play.
Nope.
He just lacks that extra gear. So I guess to cut it short, I don't care if we lose Veleno this offseason. Fellow Italian, my man, I'm sorry. I hope the pasta's good over there, but buddy, I think at this point I'd like to turn the page and get Casper in the lineup. Now, Zach, you brought up something very interesting. Do we keep Veleno for one more year to let Casper get one more year of development in? I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with Veleno being packaged up and Casper coming up. I'm very okay with that. I think we have to really be careful of the risk of regression with that. Though yeah. I don't know how much of that I see with Casper in the lineup. But yeah, I'm kind of at that 50-50 mark where if they're signing Veleno for one more year to play half a season as 4C and then maybe get scratched because Casper's banging on the door and he comes up, I'm all in. But that's a very interesting piece of the puzzle that is going to be interesting to see how that shakes out because of the reasons of Marco Casper. I don't think Lombardi's there yet. I think he can't. I think he needs one more full season.
Yeah,
I'm a huge Lombardi fan too. Pretty sure he's another fellow Italian. What up, dude? But
so what I'm hearing is you want to keep Fabry because we need at least one Italian on the team.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And Fabry, I just have a feeling his mom makes a mean chicken cutlet. Just look at him. Look at him.
Oh, she for sure does.
I just got a feeling she's making some bomb chicken cutlets. And you know what? We got to keep a WAP on the team. So I said it. That's it. I said it.
Someone's mom would gotta make the team some food, right? Some good Italian home cooked meals.
Yeah. Come on now. Come on.
Gotta keep wearing those Armani suits to the press conference. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting one, fellas. That's going to be an interesting one with Joey V. It's
yeah, it really is. I could see a situation where we even sign him and then, come after training camp. I mean, we've seen it. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but we've seen it before in the NHL, right? Where you sign these players, you want to wait until after training camp ends to see where they sit. Whoops, sorry, hit my laptop. Where the team sits and who's going to slot in. If they feel like Marco Casper can do the same thing Veleno does, then yeah, just ship them. And then you put Marco Casper in there. There's nothing wrong with that. It's almost basically like a sign-in trade, like you see in the trade deadline. So be on the lookout for that. We'll just have to wait and see. But we want to hear what you guys think about these unrestricted free agents or these RFAs that are on the team. So if you haven't already, post them down in the comment section. If you agree with us, disagree with us, we want to hear from y'all, the listeners. But we do have one more player, and that would be Christian Fischer. I'm going to make this one really quick. I really liked what he brought to the table. Did he put up as many points as he did last season with Arizona? I don't think so. I think he was right underneath that point mark. Am I upset by that? No, because I thought that he did really good on the PK. I thought being a fourth line player, sometimes stepping up in the third line, that third line shutdown line when it was Michael Rasmussen, Andrew Copp, Christian Fischer, that was a fantastic line. They did well for a decent portion. They did well, a decent portion of the season. Do I bring him back? It would be a 1-year deal, minimum contract. I might give him a little pay bump. I believe he was making like right around the $1.25 million. Most I'd give him like 1.5. I think he's a serviceable bottom player. And much like how I said with, someone like Veleno or anyone else, there are some of these players on free agency too that you can go after for probably just about as much, or if not cheaper. So from there, yes and no, I'm okay with bringing him back. Do I think he comes back? I think he probably comes back. I think a lot of players on this team, and I think upper management like Christian Fischer. Carlo, what do you think?
Yeah, I love the energy that Fischer brings. There's been so many times this season where the team scores a big goal and he is literally jumping 5 feet off the bench in celebration and just rallying the team. Like, I feel like he's really the camaraderie behind the group. His energy, his shutdown capabilities, we've seen that. But I think it's his intangibles off the ice too, and just more in the room. Again, that word camaraderie is very, very big and holds a lot of merit as well. When it comes to NHL teams, I think he has that. Do we bring him back? I honestly think he's going to be very low on the priority list in terms of like re-signing. I think priority 1 is going to be moving some bad contracts. Priority 2 is Patrick Kane, David Perron, and Air Ghost, and then the rest are going to be kind of fall into place type of things. But I would like to see Fischer back. Do I think losing him is going to be something out of this world for the team and cause a whole ton of regression? No, I do not. So, am I going to be really bummed out if we lose him? No, but I would like to see him back. Yes, and I think 1.5 might be a little rich, but if the cap's going up, I understand that, but I definitely agree with you, Zach, 1-year deal. Because again, we're getting into that crazy game of being a cap team with players who are potentially blocking, younger talent with ceilings that are not even in sight yet. So again, just why I don't want to be Steve Yzerman.
Yeah. Matt, Christian Fischer?
Well, I think just through this entire little exercise we've been doing, we already got rid of 2 people on the fourth line, so we got to bring one of them back. So yeah, I'll bring him back. I do actually like him a lot. Obviously, he doesn't bring that much as far as offense goes, but he just seems like a guy that in the locker room, I put that as one funny dude in that locker room. I think he keeps things light. He's probably in there smacking people on the ass with towels, putting mashed potatoes in people's skates, just stuff to keep it light, just if they have like a tough loss like the game before, he's gonna just be like goofing around and stuff. He's just gonna be like, you know, I don't know. I think I don't really know what my point is that I'm trying to make, but I think he's like one of the guys that the team really likes. That I think he's a guy. I think he's a fourth liner. He can come back. I don't really know what else to say about him, to be honest. There's not too much to really say about him. Yeah, give him $1.5 million. Come back next year, score a couple of goals, and yeah, get on the PK, kill some penalties.
I will add a little bit more. I love his tenacity. I love his ability to forecheck, and I love the energy that he did bring on that fourth line. He absolutely does, and that's why I would like to have him back. I think he was a breath of fresh air on that fourth line. I mean, not too many teams have a fourth line player like Christian Fischer, who's just a dog out there forechecking lane.
He's definitely got the dog in him.
He does, and that's why I'd even bring him back for $1.5 million if that's something that he would consider. I think he would. But there's obviously other teams out there like the San Jose Sharks who don't have a lot of cap and that can overspend on players like Christian Fischer. So we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe Christian Fischer wants a third line role, which we might not be able to offer to him. But yeah. All right. Well, that's all the players. So what do we still got? Well, just a little bit of Red Wings news. Players Zach Aston Reese, Simon Edvinsson, and Austin Czarnik all go back down to Grand Rapids. Griffins, Austin Czarnik did have to go through waivers. He did clear. This is all in time for the Calder Cup playoffs. So good luck to them. I'm not even sure exactly when that starts, but I slightly made a bet with Hockeytown West podcast saying if the Red Wings don't make the playoffs, we will do another episode with them talking about Grand Rapids, all those players, and then what they need to do during their playoff run. So be on the lookout for that. We will be doing another collaboration video with them. Couple other things. First time since the 2015-16 season, the Red Wings are a 40-win team.
Claps.
Yeah. Congratulations, boys. I think that's an accomplishment. I think that's great, but also it's very sad. It's just one of those things.
Quite sad, yeah.
Oh, sweet, but that's super depressing at the same exact time. Wings did sign defenseman Shai Buium to a 3-year entry-level contract beginning next season. Buium did report to the AHL Grand Rapids Griffins on an amateur tryout for the remainder of this season. And he did play in his first game. I believe it was last night. It might have been Friday night. But from what I saw on the clips that Hockeytown West and other accounts on Twitter were posting, he looked pretty good. So I'm very excited. I said that on Twitter. I was like, hey, now that he's a 2-time NCAA Frozen Four champion, I would expect him to sign very soon. And he did. Mm-hmm. And I'm very curious to see. I did notice that they put Albert Johansson on the right-handed D side, and he was paired up with Simon Edvinsson in that game as well. And so that whole entire defense is stacked. I sent that photo to you boys. Derek even made the call, like he just insert ASP, or maybe that was you, Matt. I can't remember, but exactly right. That is future. I'm Squidward, that meme where he just goes like that. Yeah. And everything's chrome. But Dylan Larkin is the Red Wings nominee for the King Clancy Memorial Trophy, presented to the player who best exemplifies leadership qualities on and off the ice and has made a noteworthy humanitarian contribution in his community. Who else would it have been, honestly?
Nobody.
Maybe Alex DeBrincat, because he's technically a homeboy too. Maybe Andrew Kopp, but I would expect nothing less from someone like Dylan Larkin. He's just all around a really good guy.
Probably not Andrew Kopp, because according to Twitter, this guy like kicks puppies and pushes over elderly people. So probably not him. People hate him.
Did I mistake? Is Andrew Kopp not from? He's from Michigan, Carlo.
Yeah, he is.
Don't play me like that.
He is.
Yeah, I know he's from Michigan, but
I don't know where he's from in Michigan.
Just have a hard time giving him credit for absolutely anything.
That's mostly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay. And then Steve Yzerman did announce that they will be doing the Traverse City tournament again. Unfortunately for us, Matt, I don't think it's going to be worth it for us to go again this year, because it's only going to be the Dallas Stars that show up, and it's only going to be for 2 games, unfortunately. And the reason behind that is because of travel costs and everything else. I mean, you look at teams like Dallas. I mean, shoot, I'm surprised that they're even willing to still do it. But then again, it's such a nice spot to go to. If you've never been to Traverse City, go, please. At some point in your life, you have to go. That is by far one of the best cities that I've ever been to. I've been to a decent amount of cities, not just in Michigan, but you absolutely have to go if you can. Matt, you look like you want to say something over
Well, I was about to say, I'll just go up so we can go back to Traverse City Whiskey. I mean, I don't even have to watch the hockey for all I care.
Yeah, we'll just go back just for that. Traverse City Whiskey Company.
That's pretty
you
nice.
you guys are doing really good over there.
Yeah, please sponsor us.
That's it for Red Wings news. I don't know if you guys got anything, but I'm going to move on to around the league news if you guys don't. But playoffs are set. Playoffs are set. I guess what I can do is here I can just name off the teams that are battling each other. So in the Central, you have the Stars versus the Golden Knights. Then you have the Jets against the Avalanche. In the Pacific, you have the Canucks versus the Predators, Oilers versus the Kings. In the Atlantic, it's the Panthers versus the Lightning. You got a little bit of Battle of the Florida going on there. And then you have Matt's Boston Bruins versus Carlos Toronto Maple Leafs. And then in the Metro, you have the Rangers against the Capitals, Rangers in 4 for obvious reasons, and then the Hurricanes against the Islanders. I am so sorry, Matt, that the Canes won last night. But I'm sure you were happy the Bruins won last night, your boys.
Well, okay, this is just like my segment of just talking about the Islanders, I guess. They played pretty well. I'm happy with the way that they played. Honestly,
they 1-1 for a while.
They should have had a goal there when I think it was Kyle Palmieri that had it. He literally had Anderson beat and somehow missed that puck. I think and hit the post. If they can play every single game like that, I could see them getting eliminated in 7.
Real quick, boys.
I don't know if they'll win, but
could be. Yeah. Real quick, boys. Just say the team that you guys think is going to make the Stanley Cup. We did do brackets. Carlo unfortunately had to go cut down a tree, so we didn't have time to make the bracket, but that's okay. Instead of showing you guys what we all picked, let's just say our teams that we're picking. I picked the Carolina Hurricanes. I just think the way that they were able to shut down teams, scoring ability and their goaltending, and I think with the addition of Jake Gensel, and you have Andrei Svechnikov, Martin Necas, or Necas, however you want to pronounce it, Sebastian Aho. I think they're set, honestly, personally. But there's other teams that you could have picked, right? I think that it was just a really tough choice. So I'm going Carolina Hurricanes. Matt, who do you have?
I got the Dallas Stars because I have a future bet on them. No, but they are a really good team. I mean, I think they're the best team in the West in the regular season. Yeah, I definitely think they can win the Stanley Cup playoffs for sure. That's who I got.
Carlo?
I got the Rangers because who the hell's stopping Rempe? That's it. That's all I got.
It's going to be the Washington Capitals, Alexander Ovechkin, much like he did to Andrei Svechnikov, just cold cock and lights out. But great pick. Honestly, I don't think that there's honestly a bad pick. I mean, this is the Stanley Cup playoffs we're talking about, where the Florida Panthers can make it to the Cup final by making it in because of the Pittsburgh Penguins losing to the Chicago Blackhawks. I will never let that down because they were the reason that never letting that down. The draft is rigged anyways, but I did do a take-a-thon where the Red Wings did get to move up 10 spots. The Red Wings do hold, I believe it's the 15th or 4th. Yeah, it would be the 15th spot. And they moved up 10 spots to get the 5th overall pick with a 0.5% chance. If that happens, I will shave my beard to look like Joe Dirt with the sideburns and everything like that. So y'all heard it here. Continuing on with around the league news, Marc-Andre Fleury signs a 1-year deal, $2.5 million with the Wild. Vasily Podkolzin with the Canucks signs a 2-year contract, $1 million average. And then going into the Phoenix Coyotes turning into the Utah Coyotes, boys. It's done. It is officially done. Yeah. That press conference with the Coyotes owner, cringe, bro. The way it
was nuts.
That owner, what is his name again? I have it here written down. Not Ryan Smith. That's the new owner now.
Marullo,
yeah.
How do you say his name?
Alex Marullo. That guy, there is, I don't know what's wrong with him. there's got to be something wrong with him. It's almost like he just doesn't give a F.
He's like
You know
a
what? He just
cartoon
doesn't give a
supervillain. Like,
Yeah. Very strange.
He's a very strange guy.
Very
But
odd
going
guy.
into the new owner now, Ryan Smith, he says that he won't rush into a new team name, but it will be named Utah something as opposed to Salt Lake City in the team name. That much has been decided. Just in the first 2 hours alone, boys, Utah had collected over 6,000 season ticket deposits. And then I believe
That's
it was
impressive.
like, that is very impressive. And then I believe it was 2 days later, I should have wrote down the date on this, Utah and Ryan Smith said that the updated total is now just over 20,000 season ticket deposits. So I'm sure it's way more now. That is absolutely insane. And a lot of people were saying, like, is there even really like a market out there in Utah? Absolutely, there's a market out there in Utah. I mean, if you go back, I can't remember when it was. It might have been earlier or later last year in 2023. They did an interview with Ryan Smith, and he's like, yeah, I mean, with the Utah Jazz, we have this many like kids in this program. Like, there's hockey in the state of Utah. So honestly, congratulations to them. I think it's going to be great. I'll be shocked if they keep the Coyotes name. The Coyotes, supposedly the rumor is, I don't know if this is true or not, do have the ability to have first dibs on an expansion team if it comes along, because what Utah is doing, they're leaving all the Coyotes like accolades, records, everything with Arizona. They're not taking them with them. So they're starting as basically like a brand new team without the expansion process in place. So I think Arizona is a good spot for hockey, but not with those owners. Absolutely not. They have to find people that are actually good, decent human beings that know something about hockey and just operations in general to take it to the promised lands. I mean, Austin Matthews, Arizona product, it's there.
Yep.
For whatever reason, it just never worked out for the 20 plus years that they were there. So sucks to suck. Carlo, from here, I'm going to hand it over to you and do the Red Wings honorary mention of the week for us, buddy.
Yes, with pleasure. Before we wrap things up, folks, it is that time for the honorary Red Wings mention. And today it is none other than Andre Nestrasil.
Oh, my God.
One more time. That is
Who?
Andre Nestrasil. We're going to go ahead and give Andre some claps. Thank you very much. Go, Andre. Good for you. He's a right wing centerman. He played 13 games with Detroit for a total of 2 points, 2 apples. Currently playing in the Czech League for, I'm going to butcher this, Hockey Club Osalari Trinek. But
couldn't have said it better myself.
Right.
51 games. 51 games. How many points has he got, boys? We're talking about Andre Nestrasil here. How many
69.
points in 51 games? Ooh, I like that
please
guess.
Please be 69. I'm following suit.
So there's a 9. There's definitely a 9, but it's not 69. It's 49 points in 51 games. Claps for Andre, because that's not too bad. That's not too shabby. 17 goals, 32 assists, 49 points in 51 games. Andre Nestrasil, we hope you're doing well, buddy. You're still playing the game. Keep her going. We hope you're doing well. That's our Red Wings honorary mention of the week. And hopefully y'all made it this far into this great episode. But why don't we do a little something we haven't done before? But if anybody who is still here, please go ahead and comment who you think should be the next Red Wing honorary mention. These things go a long way. The comments, the likes, the subscriptions, these all go a long way, folks. It helps us more than you may think. And we'd love to get some more engagement. We did a great Twitter episode last week. I thought the engagement was great with the poll that we had up. And we'd like to continue to do that, especially into the offseason, to keep, the Hockeytown faithful united. So, but let's kick it off with honorary Red Wings mentions. Who are some players that you can think of, some names that you love saying for maybe only 13 games that you can think of? Drop us a line on Twitter. Drop us a line in the comments, and we'd love to talk about them on our next episode. So sorry about that little hijack takeover spiel, but that was it. So Zach, I'll turn it back over to you, man.
No, that was great. Yeah, Andre Nestrasil. I think I botched that name terribly there, but yeah, former 3rd round pick from the Red Wings. I mean, yeah, hope you had fun here in Detroit for the little time that you were here, but hopefully you're doing well over there in La La Land, as I always like to call it. That's anywhere outside of where I'm from, by the way. So please don't take any offense to it. Carlo even lives in Canada land over there, as I like to call it. But no, I think that was a great call out, Carlo. Yeah, we really want the fans to be engaged. We want this platform as much as it is ours. It's also yours. So for you, the viewers, the listeners, whoever, please come on here, leave us a comment, let us know on who you would like to hear as an honorary Red Wing mention, or just let us know, like we said earlier, let us know about some of the contracts and these players that you would like to see bring back, whatever. Eventually, we will talk about Mo Seider and Raymond's contract. Maybe that's on the next episode, but we'll just have to wait and see. We got a lot of good stuff coming up, boys and girls. But from here, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and close it out. I think we spent enough time talking about all these topics, and so from here, I'll go ahead and start off with my final thoughts. My final thoughts are, let's go Red Wings, even though the season's over. Let's go Steve Yzerman. Let's go Derek Lalonde. Let's get this team into the playoffs next year. Let's get some of these unneeded contracts off the books. Let's get some good contracts in for Seider, Raymond, Kane, maybe even go spare Daddy P. Let's try to revamp this team. Let's revamp this defense. Let's just do what we got to do. I would not want to be Steve Yzerman this offseason. So those are my final thoughts. Thanks for watching and listening once again. Carlo, final thoughts?
Go Walleye, go Griffins, and Steve, please shed some of these contracts, buddy. Please get rid of them. But yeah, no, other than that, final thoughts, folks, lots to be excited about in Lucas Raymond, in Mo Seider, into the direction of this team, these clutch modes being activated. Though a bittersweet end, that ending is exactly what I think that, a lot of the nucleus of this team needed to take us to the next level. And it's the level we all want to get to. And that's, consecutive playoff appearances, hopefully with some deep runs. So, yeah, I think with that, that's a pretty solid final thought. Lots to be excited about here, and stick with it. Stick with Steve Yzerman. It's Steve Yzerman. He knows exactly what he's doing, and there's lots to be proud of and excited about. So again, go Walleye, go Griffins, go Yzerman, and that's all I got.
Last but not least, Matt, you're the man with the words. You get the privilege of going last, buddy. Last but not least.
Yeah, let's go Islanders. Patrick Kane is for sure going to re-sign with the Red Wings, but if he doesn't, I hope he signs with the Islanders because I'd win either way. It would be extremely funny. Yeah, they're taking home the cup. Washington is probably going to lose in 3. They're going to get beat so bad in the first 3 games that they're just going to say, you know what, this was a mistake. You shouldn't be in here over the Red Wings. And then that's how we'll get in. We'll play the 4th game, and it'll just be single elimination. If we win, we go to the 2nd round, and if we lose, we're out. That's my headcanon.
Final thoughts?
Yeah. That's it.
All right. Well, from there, good. That was a great one, Matt. I love it. I love it. I'm sorry, but all right. Well, thanks for joining us once again. If you are returning, if you are new, why don't you go ahead? If you didn't hear me the first time, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button as I say it for the 2nd time? Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Let's get this video over the 20 likes like you guys did on the last episode. It really does help us out. Leave us the comments like we keep on mentioning. That really does go a long way. We want to engage with you guys too. And if you're on Spotify, listening, watching, whatever you're doing, 5 stars, give us a follow. We definitely appreciate it from there, boys. We're done. Let's go Red Wings, Grand Rapids, Toledo. Until next time, we'll see y'all next weekend on the next one. Goodbye.
Peace.
Bye.